got your attention now, don't I?
This is the Black Rifle Coffee Podcast.
This is it. This is it.
The first of many, I suppose.
The first of many. Yeah. So, Chris, what is it like being James Bond? Is it interesting? Is it fun?
Is this how it's going to be for the next however long?
Yeah.
You said you wouldn't do this.
I don't even know where to begin other than it's a fascinating story. Your life is a fascinating story. So I've been talking to you for, I don't know, a couple of years now, but there are things that I've learned in the last few weeks that I think are incredibly interesting. And first, I think it would be suitable for everybody if you just tell everyone who you are and where you came from. Because we don't have sails. So I think you flew. You didn't sail across the ocean, right?
That's
you
right,
actually
yeah.
flew.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So give us a short bio.
So my name's Craighead.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Newcastle in northeast England. So it's on the border with Scotland. So a lot of people in North America seem to think I'm from Scotland.
You sound like it.
Well, it's my accent's called a Geordie. So
it's Geordie?
Yeah, Geordie. So people from Newcastle, like say northeast England,
right,
live on the borders. So
okay. And then what year did you join the British military?
I joined the British Army in 1992 at the age of 16, not long before my 17th birthday.
So what all did you do when you were in the military? So you joined at 16, and we'll get into that, what that was like, but kind of give us a summary of your positions in the British Army.
Firstly, I suppose I should have thought about this before I was coming on a podcast. So this is completely unprepared. I just thought, I'll just come on and chat to Evan and it's going to be simple.
Right.
I didn't realize I'd have to work for this. But so I joined the British Army in 1992. Mm-hmm. Spent almost a year in training because back then we had the junior para. So I joined the parachute regiment.
It's called the junior para.
So it's junior because you joined below the age of 17 and a half or 18.
Right.
So you have to become a junior. This was actually the last platoon, if you like, when it happened. And then they shelved it and then started again in a different format. Mm-hmm. But this was a real experience, a real in at the deep end, if you like. The parachute regiment is the premier fighting unit within the British Army.
Right.
And it's hard to do comparisons, but I suppose we'll have to do this throughout this chat. It's the parachute regiment is almost like the Rangers, mm-hmm. especially back then,
right?
Before the War on Terror. So I joined the junior para at just before my 17th birthday. 6 months of training in junior para, and then to depot para.
What's that?
It's then what we would call adult training. So it's the regular training to become a regular soldier.
Right.
And from then we went to Aldershot, and then not long into Aldershot, it got dropped on us. We're going to Catterick, which is Northern England, and which is where the training is now. Mm-hmm. So we went up to Catterick and then passed out of the training in August 1993, and then joined 2nd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment.
Okay, so as a junior para at almost 17 years old, that's 6 months of training. So I'm assuming that's a lot like basic training for the United States Army.
Yeah.
But when do you go to jump school?
So jump school happens at the back end of training on when you at depot para, if you like.
From adult. Yeah, gotcha.
So then 6 months of training, junior para. We go to Aldershot, then Catterick, and then we do something called P Company. Mm-hmm. P Company is pre-parachute selection. It's a really hard training course that not many people pass.
What does it entail?
Well, it's fast and furious.
Yeah.
It starts, well, I'm not going to go through it in itself, it's a fascinating course, and it's like, it is hard.
How long does it take? Like, what are you doing throughout that entire? It's not classified or anything.
No,
right?
P company. No, it's just it's changed a lot since I did it. But it's starts off with a assault course. There's a log race in it. The log race is pretty brutal, and ruck marches.
Yeah,
it's only P company itself is only 5 days, which doesn't sound like much, but you build up to it, and then when you pass, then that gives you permission, if you like, to go on and do the parachute course. Mm-hmm. And everyone who's an operational parachutist in the British military has to do an arduous course, and P company is one of these courses that qualifies you to do it.
Got it. And then how long is the airborne school, the British airborne school?
I believe it's going back a few years now. Yeah. For me, it was 4 weeks.
Okay.
And sadly, because of cutbacks, because of aircraft availability,
right,
young paratroopers now, they pass out of training, go to their parachute battalions, and then somewhere in their military career return to jump school, to RAF Bryce Norton, to complete their parachute course.
Got it.
Now, for me, I was fortunate enough, things were different back then. So you'd pass out of training as a paratrooper, as a qualified paratrooper.
Got it.
So when I was 17 years old, I jumped out of an airplane. First, it was the balloon. So I even had the balloon jump then.
Right.
The World War II barrage balloon.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just an amazing experience. I should add, I mean, it's going to come out, but you know, the sheltered life that I live, that I think it's quite a cool thing that I jumped out of a C-130 aircraft before I slept with a woman. So, so stand-up virgin soldiers. So
yeah, I think that's appropriate. I mean, I think the males would just be better off if that was the progression, right? You had to jump out of a C-130 before you actually got
you
laid.
have to earn the right.
Well, so the balloons, I jumped a balloon in Korea. It's like got a big square in the center of the hole of the basket. And you jump out of it. So what are you guys doing? Is it like a platform or how was it?
It was the basket. Mm-hmm. And there's just like a thin metal railing.
Yeah.
And the parachute jump instructor would open it up. And I think every parachute jump instructor has the same old joke. So you'd open this little thin rail.
Right.
And you go, just let all the air rush in. Try and
That's a solid joke. It is.
There's like 4 guys on there who are probably terrified.
Yeah, they're terrified.
It's deathly silent.
It's quiet.
It's quiet. There's just this thin cable connected to the guy. It's an old World War II like barrage balloon.
Yeah.
And he opens it up, and it's like number 1 in the door.
Yeah.
So the first guy goes up, and then you hear him jump. It's like, go, stand by, go. And you hear the 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. And then it's number 2. I can't remember what number it was. I think it might have been number 1.
Sounds about right.
It's
a consistent theme in your life.
Number one.
Yeah. It was death. It's eerie because it's so quiet and you can hear the rubber bands on your chute like pump, 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 like as you're popping out of the back of that thing. That's one thing I was like, I'll always remember the quietness and then the static line getting dunk, 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 as it's like coming out. But
I think the balloon jump, and I know you're going to be able to relate to this as many other people are. When I say people are terrified, that's not actually true.
Yeah.
Because you're getting you're nervous, you go for you get onto the box, if you like, and it's slowly going up to 800 feet.
Right.
And in that slow movement up to 800 feet, you're going through lots of different thoughts, thinking about different things, running through different scenarios. Then it stops, like, this is it. It's the realization, hey, I'm going to have to jump out of this.
Right.
Now, again, funny old joke, opens the gate, it's on. And this sense of nervousness is ebbing away more and more as you move towards that moment, that moment of truth. And then you get to the door or to the edge, and it's like everything else stops.
Right.
And then it's go, and you're out.
Yeah.
And you're in the moment. The parachute opens, And then it's a completely different feeling of, and for me, it was almost satisfaction because, not so much because the parachute had opened, it's because I'd wanted to do that, be a paratrooper, since as long as I can remember, since about 4 or 5 years old.
Right.
And that was it. I'm a paratrooper. And that was a good moment. And then you land, and then it's progressed onto a C-130, which is completely different now because now they use a Skyvan.
Yeah. And
they're lucky if they even get a C-130 to jump out of.
Right.
But it's sad times. But it's like a lot of things, we build up to something and people say, oh, when you go through the door, whatever door that might be, whatever, if it's an interview, whether it's a podcast, whether it's you build up to it and you're going through these, but when it's on, it's on.
Yeah, it's really interesting to explain things, controlling adrenaline and controlling your fear, which is it's a practiced and learned skill. I think that it's something that you can continue to evolve into. I've talked a lot about it. I think internally, maybe not inside the podcast, but there are moments in your life where your insides, you're freaking the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much adrenaline going on inside of you that you don't exactly know how you're going to control it. But somehow, like you start talking to yourself, or you start working through a process, and you start putting it into a box. You almost like start pushing it down and like making it smaller and controlling it. And you know it's there.
Yeah.
It's always there. And it's like, it's almost like there's so much energy that if you were to open that thing up, it would just consume every aspect of you.
Yeah.
And it would make you completely non-functional. And you know it. So you got to hack away at it to keep it into this little tiny little box where you know it's there, but then focusing on what you do keeps it at bay to a certain degree.
Yeah. And I think, and I hope that carries on with a lot of people, because I think what drives it is necessity. You've got to do it. Sometimes you're it.
Yeah.
And, you might be there with your family, or you might be doing something with all your friends, and you're like the leader, if you like, or you've got to do what you've got to do. And everyone else maybe is freaking out. And like you said, you've just got to go. Because if you don't do it, bad things are going to happen. Mm-hmm. So you've got to control it. And maybe it's just being stubborn as well. And a lot of people like who've done what we've done, we're trying to prove something to ourselves as well. Yeah. So even if it wasn't on us to do something, we feel like because we're little people, I'm only 5'10", and it's like
you carry yourself like you're 5'7".
It's bad posture. It's like 5'10". I love it when people say, how tall are you? And say, 5'10", and you'll look at me going, no. And I'm like, what, do you think I just lied to you? I just made that up all my life. Oh yeah, I'm 5'10". And I go, no. I'm like, yes. I'm like, measure me if bad posture,
I love the reaction, because every time, like the last couple of weeks, we've been cruising around, and people have heard of your story. We'll go into too much detail, but and it's so fun throughout the years when people they would always do this to me, because they would ask me like, well, what do you do in the military or whatever? Like, oh, I'm a whether maybe like a MOS, or I'd say, oh, I'm a Green Beret, or I'm a Special Forces guy, and they go,
yeah,
you sure about that little guy? And I'm like, no, that's but now. You're so kind, you're humble and you're kind. And I think a lot of people, when they hear your story, and I'll go, oh, that's Chris, and this is what he did. And they go, that guy? So that guy did that. And I'm like, yeah, that's what he did. There's this like general perception, I think, from a lot of civilians that you have to be 10 feet tall and bulletproof in order to carry this certain regimental crest or whatever it might be. And it's just not the case. There's like the guys that you meet in special operations globally, there's just very few of those guys, excluding like I did a rotation with the Polish Grom, and all those guys seemed like they were like Viking tall, but that's
I mean,
like
I remember meeting the Swedish Special Forces.
Yeah.
And they all look like bad guys from Die Hard.
Yeah.
They're like all like 7 foot tall, good looking, like well dressed.
Yeah. If I had to do it again, if I had to do it again, that's what I would join. It's the Swedish Special Forces. Just mainly because I really like the environmental aspects of the Swedish female population. But that's So controlling adrenaline, controlling fear, that's something that you know a little bit about. And that started at such a young age. You're 16 and a half when you join, you're 17 when you become a paratrooper. You go on to the infantry, basically. And so it's a parachute infantry, right?
Yeah.
And what was that like? Because you're not even 18.
Mm-hmm.
You can't drink a beer.
Yeah.
You are living in the barracks. You probably can't even have like posters on your wall, and you're 17 years old and you're out ruck marching and living in the military. You're living a military life.
I mean, I think I look back at it and it's one of these strange feelings where I'm really proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm really like positive about it, and it shaped me to become this person who I am. But if I had a 16-year-old son,
right,
I'd feel a bit like, a bit weary him doing that.
Right.
But so it's a bit hypocritical. But I think a lot of people who've done junior para and then went on to the parachute regiment will agree with me that it was a good thing, and it makes a certain class of soldier who goes above and beyond normal duty most of the time. They had a good track record of it, and I think there was a lot of protests within the parachute regiment when they said, "Oh, we're gonna finish junior para."
Right.
It's like I say, it started back up again now, but it's in a completely different format. Little things like in junior para on a Saturday morning, we do a ruck march.
Right.
Every Saturday morning, building up to eventually be a 10-miler.
Yeah.
Now I feel sorry in hindsight. Feel sorry for the instructors who on a Saturday morning had to come in and do that every weekend, but it's pretty hardcore, and after a whole week of fitness as well, and we used to train every day and train hard, and it was it was definitely something that shaped a lot of people.
Yeah, well, there's something to be said about, for a lack of a better term, indoctrinating late teen males into military culture because of the effectiveness. You can mold them through their brain development years to be a highly effective fighting individual, right? And you can put them into a series of performance-based skills and tasks that allow them to really rise. I think that's why Ranger Regiment in the United States, it's such an effective unit, because a lot of those guys are 18, 19 years old when they join, and they're indoctrinated into a very combat effective, very tightly organized. I think they tend to have probably the best senior enlisted men leaders in the military. Whereas you go to the Green Berets, everybody's an E5, E6. You're running host indigenous force, but you're not leading Americans typically, like in a fire team or in a squad. That comes from that level of management and leadership that guys continue to develop over the course of decades once they've joined.
Yeah.
It's very hard to replicate that type of experience. So how long were you then in the para?
So I was in the parachute battalion, if you like, for 3 years. And then I, after a bit of exposure to a unit called Pathfinder Platoon,
What's that?
Pathfinder Platoon is the Airborne Brigade Reconnaissance Unit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, again, into comparisons, a bit like Force Recon.
Oh, okay,
Marine
gotcha.
Force Recon.
Yeah.
I applied for selection to go on to Pathfinder Platoon.
And what's that selection like?
It's, again, a fast and furious selection. The first week is supposed to replicate P Company. So it's ruck marches on a set route, but at a fast pace.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes into hills similar to Special Forces selection.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually moving on to carrying rucks, navigating through arduous terrain at 4 kilometers an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That finishes a live firing package, again, which is pretty tough. And starting at normal section level attacks, building up to contract drills, so working in small teams, extracting yourself in a firefight, and then to a final exercise. So it's a short 5 or 6 week course,
right?
But there's a lot to it, and it's got a very, not many people pass the course.
What's the ratio on pass fail?
So on average, you'd get about 50 to 60 on day one, with about 5 or 6 passing on the final
Oh, that's
day.
great.
Yeah,
that's a highly successful selection. It's great. I love hearing data like that because it's like 10%. That's awesome.
But and it's a good, at the time it was, and I think it's gone back to that now. It's seen as a stepping stone onto Special Forces units,
right?
Onto Tier 1 Special Forces unit.
Yeah,
and in my time in Pathfinders, I worked with some of the best soldiers on the planet.
Right.
And it was a bit of a love-hate relationship with me because I spent a long time there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get out, but there was nowhere better to go.
Right.
So and I was badly injured whilst I was there, and so I had a rocky relationship with the platoon. But it was some real good experiences, and like I say, some of the best soldiers on the planet were in that platoon. And then I met them again later on in life.
Right. So how long were you there?
9 years.
Oh, wow.
9 years.
So you're 92, you join, 12 years later. This is 2004, 2005.
Okay. 2005, that was my end of my time in Pathfinders.
Did you do Afghanistan or Iraq with the Pathfinders?
I did Iraq with Pathfinders. That was my first time as a team leader within Pathfinders as well. So it was a good moment.
Okay. So tell me, start unpacking your Iraq experience, the first one.
So everyone, this is going back to 2003.
Yeah,
the invasion of Iraq.
Right,
building up. I was a team leader. Really good. My team was the 3-4 Delta, and it was a bit of the wild bunch, but some real good soldiers who I would see, a lot of whom I'd see later on in life.
Right.
And we were just getting ready. We weren't sure what exactly how the war was going to pan out. If you can remember back then, we weren't even sure if we were going to invade Iraq. It was all, are we, aren't we? I'm sure that our political masters knew we were always going to.
Right.
But troops on the ground, we didn't know.
Where were you guys prepping?
In Kuwait.
Yeah, okay.
And then just prepping, we're just doing, so it was all going to be vehicle mounted. So using two cut down Land Rovers to do reconnaissance patrols.
Yep.
And it was good preparation. We were ready, all set. And then the invasion happened. And then we crossed the border. Again, we were held to the rear on the crossing the border. And then we moved and we set up base in like a disowned factory with the 16 Air Assault Brigade headquarters. And then we were just, my patrol was waiting for a mission.
Right.
So
how long were you there on the invasion?
Again, this is
long time ago.
A long time ago. But
few months?
Yeah, a few months.
Yeah.
And we got the mission, and it was a great mission.
What was it?
It was a reconnaissance mission, so it was good. So in my time in Pathfinders, we deployed before in Kosovo, Sierra Leone, but we hadn't really been used in our real role, which was doing reconnaissance missions,
Right.
whether it be an observation post or close target reconnaissance,
Right.
which is, as you know, sneaking around the enemy troops,
Mm-hmm.
gaining intelligence. And this mission came in for my patrol, and it was a close target reconnaissance of an Iraqi armored division.
Right.
Estimated 4,000 armored vehicles. So it was juicy.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was nice. And
Yeah.
and going back to indoctrination about, there's a high chance we were going to meet the enemy.
Yep.
Even though that would be, in theory, you could say a mission failure because it's a reconnaissance.
Correct.
But it was like, hey, Chris, you don't have to accept this mission because the chances of you coming across the enemy is high, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be outgunned, outnumbered, with no support.
Right.
And I'm like, sounds perfect. I'm in. And every single one of the guys who were with me in 3-4 Delta were like, yes, this is it. This is let's do it. What, we might die? Brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So breaking down, we had a sponsor patrol that which was so we'd use another patrol to look after our vehicles,
Right.
whilst we went on foot and did the reconnaissance. And I broke down the team into three of us, so we could move quietly.
Right.
And if we got into any trouble, hopefully we could slip away.
Right.
And I don't want to give any spoilers away, because hopefully, in the future, people might be able to read about this.
Right.
We met the enemy. We came across an Iraqi ambush position, and that's the first time I killed someone as well.
So how what was the size of the force that you encountered?
It was around about 8 men.
Okay.
There might have been more, but visual was eight.
That's great.
And then it was just, again, pure three of us onto the enemy force, and it was just aggression, speed, aggression, surprise.
So you ambushed them.
It was, well, what happened was, it's bit of luck, bit of faith, bit of whatever.
Right.
I'm walking down this track, and I shouldn't have been on the track, but the going was so bad.
Right.
We were to get caught in the open. So I pulled in the 3 guys and said, look, we need to get on the track. We'll move down the track to, there were some power lines crossing it.
Mm-hmm.
This will be the demarcation line, if you like.
Right.
Once we hit the power lines, we'll go back onto cross graining, because otherwise we're never going to make the objective, and we're going to be stuck in the open. Is everyone happy with that? Because I didn't want to do something that was, people would look and go, oh, that's unprofessional.
Sure.
And I wanted everyone to say, you understand that? And they were like, yeah, well, let's do it. So got on the track and then moved it. It's at a good pace, but maintaining tactical discipline down the track. And then just as the power lines were approaching, I had a DaySac on with a radio, and I stopped to adjust it because it was digging into my shoulders. And as I stopped, I could hear whispering.
What?
Just about two or 3 yards to my right over a berm, and I could hear whispering. And I was like, so I turned to the guys and was like,
whoa.
The guy behind me froze. And I was like, come in. As I whispered, I think there might be enemy forces down there. And whether they heard me whispering, whether they heard me adjusting, someone stood up and looked.
Right.
Look. So I immediately raised my weapon and engaged.
Right.
1 shot, got a stoppage.
Nice.
So, and we were sure we were going to meet the enemy, so we cleaned our weapons before we left. We even stripped down our magazines, and that's how confident we were to get into a fight. Didn't know if I hit him or not, but he dropped.
Right.
So I then, don't know, again, we were talking about before, do all this.
Yeah.
Put it all in a box.
Put it all in a box.
It's on. So I ran up to the berm, pulled out I had a HA grenade, and just threw the grenade down behind the berm.
Right.
Grenade detonated. There's a bit of a scream. And because I'd had the stoppage, I pulled out my pistol and just started engaging all the guys with weapons. They all had weapons, all ambush position. And so I had the old Browning high power, and then engaging all the combatants.
Right.
Guy to my right swings up with the M249,
right,
the Mini-Me, and starts making music with that, and sort of and neutralizing all the threats.
Right.
And he's just like, and again, complete professional, button down. And then the third guy was armed with a sniper rifle, and he pulled some hand grenades and threw it into depth. I was like, right, let's go. Once I'd neutralized 5 Iraqi soldiers,
right,
and the guy to my right, 2+, and then so I was like, let's go, and then working in pair, like so, those 2 working as a pair and me as an individual, bounding back.
Right.
Once we'd bounded back, I then turned and went, right, let's fucking go.
Right.
We ran down and for about 2 kilometers to like an RV point to get picked up. And that's why when people say, I don't understand why soldiers have to put all their gear on and run as fast as you can, because that's why.
Right.
That's in the British Army, they have a 2-miler.
Yeah.
Which is, it's pretty hard. It's 2 miles wearing all your
shit.
assault gear and you run it used to be an 18-minute pastime. I don't know what it is now. I don't even know if they do it. But that's why you do that test. It's hard. And you like run and you're running for your life. And when we got to the RV, going back to the mindset of people is get to the RV. None of the Iraqis are following us up. But we're not happy about that.
Right.
We're pissed off. Because we want the fight.
Right.
We want this like, it'd be awesome wouldn't it be awesome if loads of tanks and things were coming after us. Like, we're gonna die. It's awesome. But yeah, like the guy next to me, Larry, he was like, like hissing. He's like, why the fuck aren't they following us? He was wanting it, and then the other guy, Paddy, set his sniper rifle up, and he's like, be perfect for him because he would just be done.
Oh yeah.
But at that stage of the war, I feel the Iraqis were on the verge of surrendering, and they were like, "What's the point?
Right?
What's the point? They just lost some guys. And they're just thinking, if we go after them, some of us are going to die for not. We're going to. They probably knew they were going to surrender soon anyway.
Right. So that's the first engagement.
Yeah.
That you ever participated in.
Yeah.
And then, did you guys get in any other gunfights while you were in Iraq on that first?
We did it wasn't a gunfight. We ended up calling in artillery.
Yeah.
Later on, a couple of days later, we went back, and that was again just called in an artillery, but it wasn't a proper fight, if you like.
Right. So you come out of Iraq. Did you do a couple rotations?
No, that was, I think.
How'd you get injured on there? What?
Oh, I got injured in 1997 in a car accident.
Oh, you did?
I was a passenger in the back of a Land Rover, and it's a lorry pulled out, like a truck pulled out in front of the Land Rover, span off the road, and then it rolled down the embankment, and it was pretty bad. The truck driver died. The driver of our vehicle, Graham, he died. I was crushed, and I got ejected out the back.
Right.
And I was badly injured. So I had broke my neck in 3 places, my back in 7 places, dislocated my hip, broke a load of ribs. I had a tension pneumothorax, broke my shoulder blade, my collarbone, fractured my skull, and had a subdural hematoma, so blood on the brain, which they had to operate on.
Right.
So I was in a bad way, and and I was in a coma for the induced for about 2 weeks, and then I came out. And
so how long does it take you to recover from something like that?
This is 1997 in the dark ages. So back then I came out of the coma, about another week in hospital, then I get a phone call saying, make sure you're back at work at.
Fuck off.
So this is leading up to Christmas. Back at work in January, so like 3 weeks at home and then back at work, and then it was like 0 rehab. So it was, and then, but I was 23 then, 22, 23, and you just want to get back into the fight,
right?
And what I always say to young people who are injured now is make sure you get rehabbed. Yeah, make sure no one's going to thank you for getting back to work early. Yeah, make sure you're fixed because there's still I'm touch wood, I'm fitting well. Yeah, especially for my age and for what I've done. Yeah, but they're all like posture. Hip problems, right? Or not hip problems, but hip mobility. Yeah, it's probably due to that accident, right? But I was. So 5 months later, This is not an exaggeration, and I sometimes say this is a true story, and it doesn't mean that all the stories I tell is bullshit.
This one's true.
This is true.
This is true.
Everything else is rubbish, but this is a true story. But when I say this is a true story, it's normally like say like no, I'm not exaggerating any of this, and not that I do, but I've always feel the need to say that. But 5 months later, from time of injury, first parachute jump, and it's 25,000 feet,
right?
Halo jump onto an exercise.
Right.
The difference between onto exercise and onto a training jump is when we're doing training jumps, you just have your ruck boxed out. But when it's onto like going into an observation post for 2 weeks, it's like
the whole
your
thing.
ruck's like heavy as hell. It's odd shaped, and it was like, here we go. Do you know what? I might have even been with a GPMG, so I have a machine gun free falling as well. And I was just thinking to myself, well, this is a good way to start it all off. But again, what are you going to do? You're not going to refuse.
Right.
Are you good to jump? Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in your mind, you're saying, no, I'm not.
Right.
Like my neck still hurts, my back still hurts, my hip still hurts, but you're still but because you're young and stupid, you're going, yeah, I'm good. So
I think that's something with going back to one of our point of like controlling fear, and like I know what it feels like, and I think you know what it feels like, but how do you do it when because we've had these reps, and I'll explain the way that I think about it, but I want to see how you think about it, because when things are going to be pear-shaped, right? You know they're going in a different direction. You know that there's people are either going to be shooting at you, you're going to be shooting people. And it's not just that. You're going to be jumping out of a plane at night, or you're going to be jumping out of the back of a helicopter in the middle of, the dark water at, 2:00 in the morning. What's going through your mind before you make entry, before you cross the threshold, so to speak?
I think at different stages, there's different thoughts. Right. And it's like, so there's the initial, like far from the furthest point is more, you think about your real life.
Right.
And this is really far removed. So this is before you've even left the base.
Yeah.
You think about your family, you think about, is my apartment clean? So if I die,
right,
no one's going to think I'm a slob.
Yeah.
It's like,
did I sanitize the pornogaphy in my foot locker?
Yeah, there's the message, put this hard drive into a missile and fire it at the sun, sort of thing. there's that sort of thing. And then it comes into like the first phase, which you're thinking about the task at hand.
Right.
And that's your problem solving. Mm-hmm. That's what am I going to do? Whether you're the commander or it's whatever your role is within that, and you're problem solving. The next point is the apprehension of and this is probably what we're getting into is going through what could happen, what might happen, and there's always the negative. And I think with most people, from a military perspective, it's not about, no one really fears about dying. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's always about messing up. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure you do right. That's the worst thing that could happen. Yeah. It's like when you skydive, no one's thinking about, what if my parachute doesn't open? They're thinking about the drills that I got to do. I hope I'm nervous because I don't want to mess this up and be the weak link.
Performance anxiety.
And then, and then the final thing is, this is it. And for me, it's when it all falls away. And once, like say, whether it be a skydive, once you leave that ramp or when the red light comes on, it's like finishes, and then it's like you're in the moment, and then you leave, and then it's that rush of now you're in the moment.
Yep.
Same as whether that be military things that you do.
Right.
You're now in the moment, and then it's rapid problem solving, rapid reaction. So if you're free falling, if something goes wrong, how do I correct it?
Yeah.
If you're in a gunfight, something happens, you react. You see something, you react, and it's completely in the moment. Mm-hmm. And I hope I don't describe that as it's not tunnel vision. It's far from it. It's open vision. You're super sensitive to sight, sound, smell, everything. All these senses are popping away, and you're in the moment, whether like say free fall or whatever. And I think there are stories though, when people talk about their first free fall or first moment in combat and things, when that comes at a cost where you go, you don't remember it. You don't. Some things are lost, and some people might freak out or might have a complete sensory overload and like freeze.
Yeah,
and I think that's what happens. But for most of the people we know, and because of training, because of how the training system is, that when certain military people get into those high stress situations, then it's very unusual for them to freeze or to completely flap out of control because the building is taking them to that point.
Right.
Whereas if you just picked someone out and dropped them into that, then it might be completely different.
Yeah, I've explained that to a lot of people where I would build into these things even early in my life, where I started doing things that were uncomfortable or adrenaline-based activities that would force me into a level of uncomfort where I had to control what I was doing. So, climbing, before there was a war, it was climbing and kayaking, like whitewater kayaking, and spending a lot of time in adrenaline-based activities because I wanted to figure out how to focus and then get results under pressure. And it's interesting, before the wars, there were some people that understood that, and there were some people that didn't understand that, why you would go and do something. It wasn't just because it was fun, it was because, I have to actually teach myself how to do this. Because I saw it in, when I went to airborne school, which was around the same time you went to airborne school, give or take. Well, not really. I was 5 years away from you. But you go through these training courses and they're 3 weeks long. And jumping out of a plane at that point really wasn't a big deal because you go through rep after rep after rep after rep, and you're, being hoisted up by the tower and dropped, and you're just like, okay, let's fucking get on with it. It's kind of like, okay, enough with the build up. It's a lot of foreplay. Like, we got to get it on here, right? And so by the time you get to that point, you're like, man, I'm so excited to do this. I just got to get it done.
Yeah.
But you still saw people that were so hesitant and they were so scared. And there's like another group of people who are like, fucking, this is awesome, right? And we're going to like jump out of a C5 or a C-130 or something like that. And I never got nervous after that point, like jumping out of a plane. I was just like, okay, whatever. Like, we're, stand up, hook up, move off the back ramp or through the side door or whatever it was. There's never fear again in any of those activities. It was like more of like, we got to go jump. And it became more of an inconvenience.
Yeah, that's right. It's not like build up. It's not like, oh my God, we've got another jump tomorrow. It's just like, guys, like, and there's a lot of guys, I'm sure for the static line, 800 feet parachute jumps don't like it. And but yeah, you're right. It's not build up. It's not like, oh my God, we're going to do another parachute jump. It's just like, here we go. It's the inconvenience of jumping into an operation or an exercise now.
Yeah. And it always looked at, and I looked at it, if it was a nice day, and we were jumping into like a field, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. And I'm light enough. Like it's like 150 pounds. If it was like a Hollywood jump and there was no equipment, nothing, I'm like, it's fine. I don't hit the ground very hard. So it was always those other things where you're looking at it and you're like, oh man, I got a lot of weight. That thing's going to suck, or wherever you're going. But there was never another doubt, or there's never another thought in my mind like, oh, I'm terrified to walk off the back ramp of this helicopter.
Yeah,
like, it was never another thought of it.
Never thinking, oh, what if my parachute doesn't open? It's not a thing. It's just like, it's just about, you just embrace the suck of what's to come. That's what you're thinking about. It's like, I'm going to land and I'm going to have to walk. We call it tabbing, tactical advance to battle, is like carrying weight and ruck marching. Basically, I'm going to have to tab like 20 miles when I land on the ground. That's what you're thinking about. That aircraft thing is just on. And I hope now, I really hope that that's how it still is today because of the lack of aircraft availability, funding, things like that. Paratroopers don't jump as much as they should do.
Right.
So hopefully there's not that element of it's an extreme thing now because they don't do it so often. Everyone's like, oh, we're going to jump. So hopefully it's how it used to be, where people just don't like it and they just got to get on with it and they just do it.
Well, wouldn't it be weird? Think about that. So you go back to where you're at with the Pathfinders, and what if you had this dude in the Pathfinders that was on the team? And did you guys do any static line, or was it all free fall?
Every now and again, you do a static line for current season,
right? So imagine the dude in the team room that was like super fired up about doing a static line jump. Like, come on, guys, this is awesome.
That's me.
Can you imagine if there's that dude who's like, hell yeah, we get a static line today, guys. This is awesome, man. This is going to be great. We're going to static line. Nobody said that. Like after a while.
We're British. No one says that about anything.
Yeah, like, that's fair. Yeah, you guys are too stoic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're too stoic. But yeah, there's nobody like celebrating and high-fiving, like firing people up going, let's jump out of this. It was like, oh yeah, cool. We got to go do this. And it was more like, oh God, we're going to sit on the tarmac. We're going to get JMPI'd, like bring a fucking book. Like, oh my God. Like it's just an inconvenience.
Well, actually, I'm completely wrong about this. I don't know if it still happens, but you used to get what you call a green light warning order. Mm-hmm. So before every static line parachute jump, I'm not sure if it's the commander or it's the lead parachute jump instructor reads this statement,
right?
Of you're about to do a military parachute jump, and it says, for want of a better word, by not jumping you're breaking the law, and you'll be court-martialed.
Yeah.
So it's like so that in itself is a bit of hey, you got to jump. No, and I think it came from World War II.
Yeah, the jump refusal.
Hopefully that still goes on because I think it's a good bit of tradition where really formal. On behalf of the Queen, if you don't jump, you're gonna get kicked out. You probably just get counselling now if you refuse to jump rather than kicked out,
or you get a medal.
Yeah,
like,
what's it called?
Courage.
What's it called? Courageous restraint or something. Oh yeah, you a shining example. You didn't want to do something you didn't want to do, and you know what? You those bullies trying to make you jump out the airplane, and you stopped, and you're an example with everyone. And
those bullies.
Yeah, here's a medal. You can do PR for us now.
Isn't that funny though? If you think about the most mundane task, we were talking about this the other day, where the most mundane task that wouldn't elevate your heart rate past 65 would give normal people cardiac arrest. Like it would throw them into cardiac arrest. If you just took them out, put them into a situation where we're literally just doing a logistics effort. It's not even something that we're concerned with whatsoever. It's just like literally logistics. We have to be here at this time. This is the mode of transportation. Okay, let's go do it.
Yeah.
And then that would kill most civilians. They would be like, I can't do this. There's like, when I say they wouldn't psychologically or physically be able to accomplish said task in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, well, maybe, or maybe not. Because if you think about World War II, it's all about, like I said earlier, about necessity.
Yeah.
And it drives the human body to do things it wouldn't normally do.
Right.
If you think of World War II, you have people who had normal jobs.
Yeah.
Then we're in global war. A little bit of training, and then perhaps they're flying over the channel to jump into Normandy.
Yeah.
And you're like, and they're doing it. And they've, like, compared to all the years of training we had,
right,
it's been compressed into just a few weeks and saying, now you're going to be in a glider, or now you're going to be in a, and they have to do it.
They have to do it.
It'd be interesting. I don't think most civilians in this day and age could do that if we went to do a global war. But it is interesting that when people are forced into a certain situation, how we can rise to it and do the extreme.
I think you'd have like a good percentage of maybe the listeners of Joe Rogan's podcast would be good with it. But I think there's there's a huge percentage of
the
people
realists or the hateful ones.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the ones who listen and probably give themselves a Chinese burn.
Right. They're like,
They go to bed angry afterwards and then comment on something. I don't know.
Yeah. And when I've looked back on a lot of the things, you know, Iraq's kind of a blur in a lot of different ways because it's like 4.5 years of just, you know, back and forth. But I mean, I would be falling asleep in a car. Like if things weren't going on, I'd be like, man, I wish I could fucking recline the seat here and take a little nap because there ain't nothing going on. And most people would be like, I can't psychologically or physically deal with being in this place whatsoever. And it's you get used to it. You just kind of get used to what's happening. And if things aren't, I remember Baghdad early on when things started really ramping up and the IED threat started really picking up. Yeah. It took a while to get used to it because you're like, but you're acclimating to the environment. But when you think about what we were used to on a regular cadence, there were IEDs going off everywhere all day long. You'd have black mushroom clouds across these, you know, in these cities, and things would be blowing up all day long. And then you'd have indirect, typically, you know, a few times a week. You have, you know, rockets and mortar pits going on. It was just, and you'd be sleeping. You'd be sleeping on your cot. Like, all right. And sometimes, like, for a while, before the invasion, I remember I was like, when we were worried about the Scuds, you remember that shit before that?
I mean, it's surreal, isn't it?
Yeah. And I remember sleeping with my body armor before then, and for like 2 nights or whatever it was. And then it dawned on me, I was like, I don't need this because if it lands, I'm not going to feel it either way. So I like put my body armor underneath my cot and like went to sleep. Yeah. And I never did it again. Like ever after that.
And I remember, you know, when you were talking about attack alarms going off and from indirect fire.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to people saying, "Oh, did you hear the alarm go off?" And this was people outside of my job.
Right.
And they'd be like, "Oh, jump on the floor." And it was, And I was thinking, well, I don't jump on the floor because it's just the inconvenience. You know, you pull your duvet up that little bit. The luxury of being in the rear, so to speak, when you've got duvets and things, when there's people doing real soldiering in patrol bases who haven't got duvets and who are living it 24/7. But, you know, and because again, if you hear it go off and jumping on the floor is done.
It's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't advocate that. That was just my drill. So if anyone says, "Oh, you're showing a bad example," because
I debated it a lot for a while because I was like, am I just lazy? Or, you know,
I just accept it.
Yeah, it's
just like, you know, you know, but the chances of a rocket landing on me in bed is pretty slim.
Yeah,
and if it did, it was meant to happen.
Right. Maybe I had one land in a shower next to me. I had a mortar land in the shower next to me. It didn't go off. It was just stuck in the floor.
Well,
and it was like, there's just luck.
I know
just
the
like
story
sheer luck.
There was a guy who was sleeping not that far away from me, in a couple of blocks away in a certain place, and a mortar round landed. He got up in the middle of the night and decided he needed to pee.
Right.
Went to the bathroom, and a mortar round landed by the end of his building and would have completely peppered him had he not woke up in the middle of the night and went for a pee. And that it's weird how life is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It takes you in certain directions.
So when you leave the Pathfinders, what do you go and do after that?
So then I applied for Special Forces selection.
Did you get accepted on the first
No,
round?
that was actually the third time. So I tried it in 2000, 2001, and this was my third and final go.
Wow.
And I'd signed, so I'd finished Iraq, had my fight, if you like, and I'm so glad about it. And then I met a friend of mine who was in the SAS.
Right.
And I was chatting to him and I said, I'm getting out. I've signed, I'm going to go on the circuit. I'm going to earn loads of money.
Yeah.
As everyone was doing at that time.
Right.
And he was like, what are you doing, man? Just put your papers in to come and try and get into the regiment.
Right.
And if you fail, then get out and work on the circuit. But if you pass, there's you don't understand what's beyond.
Right.
And I was like, and it was a lot easier back then. Now you have to do lots of pre-courses and things. And so I came back and said to the officer commanding Pathfinders, I want to sign back on, but I'll only sign back on if you let me go on SAS selection.
Right.
And he then said, yeah, you can do that, but if you fail, you're not coming back to Pathfinders. You're going back to the So everything was everything. I'd put all the cards on the table.
Yeah.
Like if I fail, I'm going back to a parachute battalion. And because I'd been in Pathfinders for so long, they'd probably take it wouldn't be a good place for me.
Right.
So my last year in the army would be hell, or I'd be in a bad place mentally. So then so for the third time, went on selection and passed, and then I served until I retired in 2020, September 2020.
How much can you talk about selection?
I think that's it. That's all I'm going to go on. I don't want to. As you know, that I've wrote the book, One Man In,
right,
which talks about something I did in 1919,
right, and
I'm working with the Ministry of Defence as we speak to do it properly, to release this book. So there's no sensitive information or anything. So that's as far as I'm willing to talk about my life in 22nd Special Air Service Regiment.
Right. So. Well, and it's interesting because.
And I should add that the book One Man In is just about that one day.
One day.
So for anyone now on the edge of their seats, it doesn't talk about anything that I did while serving in the unit. It just talked about one thing I did that we all know I did.
Right. Well, because the SAS is very secretive, but there are some really high profile guys that are out there that have been, part of the SAS.
Yeah.
Chris Ryan is one I think that comes to mind. Did you read Bravo 20 and did that have some type of impact as to your career progression?
Well, Bravo 20 came out when I was I was in 2 Para.
Yeah.
2nd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment, when they came out, and I read it already. I read it then, and it was great. It was I cut through that in like one day. It's really
great,
and I know that lots of people have joined the army and then the SAS because of reading that book.
Mm-hmm.
And I read Chris Ryan's The One That Got Away. Yeah. Really good read.
Really good.
Enjoyed it. And
have you ever met him?
Yes, I have. Yeah. He's a friend of mine.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Is he?
He's from the same place. We sound the same.
Yeah.
So if we get together, we have to be wary of, because when 2 Geordies get together, right now I'm trying to speak as clear and as slow as possible.
And I thank you for that.
And it starts speeding up, and then people would be hear us talking and go, what are they doing?
Right.
I don't know. But he's a good guy.
Is he?
Yeah. And what he did is fairly inspirational. Again, it's the longest on foot escape and evasion in history, I think, on foot, or in the regiments anyway.
Right.
So.
But the book was really good. And did you watch the movie too?
I didn't. I just I
can't believe you didn't watch the movie.
Yeah, because it was I was into the system then, and
right.
I don't know which, because I didn't. They did the Bravo 20 the movie, and I think they did The One That Got Away as well.
Did they? I don't know. I didn't see that one. I just saw Bravo 20.
I don't know. The only one I know of, because I saw a clip, and you've got them running in the desert.
Yeah,
and it's got Phil Collins playing.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, they had.
And that's a bit weird.
Well, he's British.
Maybe, yeah, he is. But maybe, I mean, that to me is saying, if they say, hey, Chris, we're going to make a movie, and there's going to be this scene where Phil Collins is playing, and you're running in the night, I'd be like, that's like a dream I had once. I didn't like it.
Yeah, but I would like to see that. I would like to see like a one-man CQB montage with Phil Collins playing in the background.
Phil Collins is great, though. Yeah. Genesis is like a thing.
It is.
I mean, if any young people are looking, going, who? Genesis?
Right.
It's like suggested listening.
Isn't he Sir Phil Collins?
He might be.
Yeah, I think he is.
I mean, he should be if he's not.
He should be.
Yeah.
Like, well, that could be a recommendation.
And his daughter, is it Lily, I think? She's rocking it on lots of things, and I think a lot of people don't know that it's his daughter.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. She's in a lot of, I'm not sure what.
So if that's all we're going to talk about as far as like your entry into this.
Yeah.
I do have a few other questions though.
Okay. And we can edit this out.
We can edit them.
Yeah.
So when you estimate your time in service, and I would think like the most impactful, because you get some titanium in do you have a titanium arm?
Yeah. Basically from my elbow to shoulder is a titanium rod in there.
You don't talk about getting shot in the book.
No.
But you have been shot.
Yeah.
And with what?
It was with from a Dragunov, SAS to a Dragunov sniper rifle.
And so did that shatter?
Yeah, it went
that bone
through the back of my arm, shattered my humerus, which is a funny bone.
Right. Was it funny then, or
no? But I give them like a dirty look.
Yeah.
You know, like it was. I've got this thing. We call it. People are going to cringe now. When I'm in a bad mood or someone says something I don't like or whatever, they get what they call the cat's arse.
Right. The cat's ass. Yeah.
I do that with my lips.
Right.
I'd probably give them a dirty look because you just shot me. But
what's it like being shot?
But this is the strange thing. Now it hurt badly.
Mm-hmm.
It hurt.
You don't say.
Yeah, it hurt when it goes through that bone. And I get if people say, "Oh, when people get shot, they don't feel it." I completely buy into that. If it doesn't go through a bone,
right.
But once it goes through a bone and shatters it, it hurts. But it wasn't a feeling of it was like banging your funny bone and timesing it by 10,000.
Right.
That's what it felt like. But here's the messed up bit. Going back into junior para, being indoctrinated and things, It was a sense of satisfaction. It's like, I've just been shot. That's pretty cool. Because that's what that's like, in the back of my mind, that's playing. It's like, I've been shot. That's cool. It's like I hope I don't lose my arm.
Yeah.
And my arm was hanging, and it was hanging by the tricep.
Right.
But I could, having some medical knowledge, I could wriggle my fingers.
Yeah.
And in my mind, again, just thinking that's not that bad because I can wriggle my fingers. It means it's in my mind. I was thinking I'm going to keep my arm.
But it not only went into your arm, it went in. Didn't it go into your side too, or was it only your? Okay,
yeah. But that's a strange thing. It's like a thing of like, and I think most young soldiers maybe you kind of want to get shot.
Yeah.
Because it's like a thing, isn't it? It's like I've been shot.
Yeah, it's that the movie. It's the movie Gunshot, where like it's always right there, right?
Yeah.
Where it goes, it's through and through. It's like, oh man, I got shot in the, and it's that thing where you're like, oh, wouldn't it be sweet if I got shot, but it didn't really fuck me up all that bad. Like you really do think about that, where you're like, I really want it just for the experience.
Careful what you wish for, isn't it? And And even some people, when again, people might say, oh, I was in an IED and I didn't like it. You kind of want it to happen. You kind of want to be tested.
Yeah.
If that's what it's like, and sometimes death is a price that you say, do you know what? I don't mind dying. I think there's lots of people who haven't seen combat who would have said, I will sacrifice my life to experience that combat. And I think that's part of training, mindset, everything comes to it.
So you get shot.
Yeah.
Did you put a tourniquet on your arm?
No, I didn't.
No? Pressure dressing?
I wanted to.
Yeah.
And it was this whole thing about the, when you have tourniquets in each pocket on your arm. And the reality of it was I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
And then, so from that moment onwards, I'd always carry a tourniquet on my front, and I would urge everyone to do the same. But that was a blessing because I got myself behind cover, made people aware that I'd been hit.
Yeah.
They didn't put a tourniquet on, didn't think about it. And then when I got into a vehicle, there was a young officer in front of the vehicle saying, oh, should I put a tourniquet on? And I said, don't bother, because if I needed it, I would have bled out by now.
Right.
that was a good move because the surgeon, after looking at my arm, said, "Hey, just because no one put a tourniquet on, that saved your arm. It would have trashed it." So it was a blessing.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's strange how things happen.
Yeah. So what was happening? So I'm assuming it was so it went all the way through.
Yeah,
and then there was probably a significant amount of fragmentation. So the bullet probably split into pieces as it broke the bone, or did it go all the way through and just kept going? So it was FMJ.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it was lucky. It was in Headley Court in UK, the specialist said it's amazing that the three main nerves running down my arm weren't compromised.
Yeah.
Which allowed me to then carry on in service.
Right.
Which is good.
And how long did it take you to recover from that?
9 months. 9 months. 9 months of rehab.
Wow.
And it was really, good, really good group of people who were working on my arm and got me back in fighting shape.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that recovery like? How much, when because they had to replace the bone with a titanium rod, right?
Yeah. It's some like some sort of rod that allows the bone to like grow through it, I believe.
Okay.
And it was like the bone grows back and then it was just a slow process of getting movement.
Yeah.
And the only risk to it when they did the surgery said, look, you're sort of out the woods as long as it doesn't get infected for the immediate time after the operation, then you're going to keep your arm, which is good.
Was that the only time you'd been shot?
Yes. Yeah.
Any other experiences with like frag or things like that from grenades or IEDs?
Just in the close proximity, but nothing that required me to go to hospital.
Right. But since we can't cover some of the things that I'd really like to cover,
maybe that's in the future.
That's the future. I do have a series of questions, which is your time in service. You used a couple different rifles.
Yeah.
What was your favorite rifle? And you don't have to placate to the American crowd. You can say like whatever British pile of shit. I mean, sorry, that's...
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think now of what...
Because you like those bullpup things, right? The Brits like
no,
that.
We don't.
Back,
let me get one thing straight. No one likes that, and anyone who does say they like it, do you know what? I don't even know what they call it now. It's like the SA-80.
Yeah.
And all these guys and all these officers and these generals are probably going to be like, "Oh my God, he's talking about the SA-80."
Right.
It's terrible. Do you know what it is? It's like if jazz music was a weapon.
That's what it is.
That's what it is, because there's this minority that say they love it, and they don't love it. No one likes jazz music. I mean, it's just a lie. It's the same with this SA-80. There's all these specialists going, "Oh, it's super accurate. It's really good. It's that." Yeah.
I've never understood that. It was
terrible.
Weapon.
Everyone knew it was terrible, and then we just kept on tweaking it. It's like the stubbornness of someone going, instead of just. If you look at the police and other units within the British system, they've changed their weapon systems umpteen times. But the British Army just keep tweaking this piece of shit. and they've still got it now. And it's like it's outlived anyone in military service. And it's terrible. It's like this. It's
terrible.
It's so bad. It's just like when you probably saw a lot of bad commanders do this, where they make this really bad decision and it's so bad. That if it's a little bit bad, they'll say, okay, we'll just change the plan because it's working. Because it's so bad, you can't lose face, and if you just got to keep plugging away at it. It's terrible, isn't it?
It's terrible.
Yeah. It even looks. I mean, one of the key things
looks bad too.
Yeah, and that's an important thing.
Yeah,
I don't care what anyone says. If it looks good, it's half the battle. Mm-hmm. So if it was a piece of shit but it looked badass, we can live with that.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Yeah. What about the British pistol? What did you guys use? Browning high powers?
At the time that was the Browning high power, and they were so old. like shaky and it did the job when I needed it to.
Yeah,
but we had to but it was.
But it's still not a bad even today. Like the Browning High Power is really not a bad pistol. It's better than the Beretta.
Springfield Armories have done a new design of it, and so have FN, and it's just a nice. It feels nice. It works nice. I think the problems with the Brownings we had, they were just so old.
Yeah.
So realistically, it wasn't accurate,
right,
beyond 7 yards, really.
No.
And I remember the first time I fired a 6 hour P226,
right,
and I was still in Pathfinders at the time, and it was this feeling of joy of thinking, wow, it's actually the bullets are going where I aim it. It's like brilliant, and it was like a good moment and a good weapon. But.
Yeah, it was a huge upgrade. I remember going from, because we had the Beretta, which is just the worst. There's so many different things that I hate about the Beretta. Mel
Gibson's got a lot to answer for.
Yeah, he really does.
He made that 92F like a...
I think that was based on, and I could be wrong, but it was based on...
Because as a kid, I wanted that gun.
Yeah.
I wanted a black Beretta 92F like Mel Gibson.
Heck yeah.
It was just like, that was and I'm sure that influenced the US military into...
I think what it was the Italians were getting ready to downsize our base footprint. And I think the Reagan administration negotiated a contract for the military through Beretta if they approved through the Italian government to not decrease our base footprint. I think that was this exchange basically that they put out. I mean, Beretta makes a great shotgun. They're like,
it's a great company, and and I know there's some really nice people who work for them, and it's good.
But I hate that pistol. Yeah. I hate it so much. There's like so many things that I don't like about that pistol that I can't really go into all the things that I hate about that, because that would just sound really kind of complaining. Because once there's a better option out there, the military at times can be really slow to adopt those things. Whereas once the Glock came out, and it started replacing the revolvers, a lot of the service pistols that were out in law enforcement, we naturally wanted to move over to a Glock, and it wasn't until much later. And the officers fought it tooth and nail. Like they're like, "This is a great pistol," and it's like, "What do you know about fucking shooting a pistol?"
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible.
It's terrible. And I've often wondered what change is difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah,
and as you start, looking at the weapons that you've used over the course of your career, what's the best pistol you've been able to shoot so far? Like in the last 10 years.
I mean, there's so many. The trouble is now is we've moved on so much further and leaps and bounds. That there's so many great pistols out there.
Yeah,
I think two pistols spring to mind. The first is the Staccato.
Yeah,
your Staccato.
Yes,
and it fires really nice to fire.
It's beautiful
and user friendly.
Yeah.
Again, for traditionalists, good. And the other one is the Zev Hypercomp, and it's common knowledge that I work with work with Zev, but the Hypercomp, again, I think people need to understand is Zev on Glock. People think that Zev modify Glocks.
Yeah.
Zev have their own weapon systems, but the Zev OZ9 Hypercomp is like a dream to fire. And it was, and credit to Zev, they said, I said, I want to do something with this sort of pistol, with an X pistol. And they went, well, you know what, have you ever fired an OZ9? I was like, I have not.
Right.
And then they said, well, what we want you to do is do the Pepsi challenge, come up to our headquarters and go through a set of pistols. And they were, they didn't have to, but the credit to them, they said, if you want to do it with X pistol, we'll still do it because it's your gun.
Right.
But we feel that when you experience firing the Hypercomp and the OZ9, you'll see the difference. And you know what? I saw the difference. It's a great pistol. Yeah.
And I would 100% agree. I've owned a couple of Zevs in the last several years. One, they made some incredible aftermarket products early on. So, and they're not sponsoring the podcast. So I'm saying that.
I don't get paid to, this is all from my heart. It's like, I'm working with Zev, not for Zev.
The staccato to me is, and I have like different methodologies when I look at shooting. I have the things I like to shoot at the range, like that are the things I love. I like shooting race guns. I really like them. And then I have things that I carry for utility.
Yeah.
Right. So I think you fit the tool for the track, or that fit the tool for the problem. A lot of guys are like, no, you should only shoot the thing that you carry. And I'm like, dude, but shooting's fun.
Yeah.
Like and you can have more than one. So why not?
Yeah.
So I switched from the Glock 43 to the SIG, this thing. That's why I got it out.
Yeah, it's great. Is that a 365 XL?
Yeah, it's actually just the 365.
Okay.
So
it's in the holster. That's how I didn't. If everyone's
yeah. So my other question is, do you believe in carrying a pistol without a light?
Without a light, I think that. So to answer your question is, if you can put a light on your gun, then you should always have it on your gun.
Right.
It's like but again, through cost, availability, all those sort of conditions, then it's not, if you have to carry a gun without a light on it, then it's not the end of the world. But if you can do it, then do it. Because you could argue, I know there's probably data to support this, I don't know, but if you're going to have to draw your pistol in a self-defense situation, it's probably going to be in a low-lit environment, car lot, at night. It's going to be at night. So it sort of stands to reason that you should have a light on your carry gun.
Yeah, I think so too. So when I see guys carrying their everyday carry and I see they don't have a light, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. A lot of guys carry the light separate. I've seen that before too, where they're like, well, I want the separate light. I'm like, maybe I'm probably just a little bit too lazy for that because I just want the light there. So I don't forget it. And I also don't want to have two separate items moving around.
And life always throws these things at us. It's the one time that you haven't got that light on you is the one time it all happens in a pitch black environment or a dark environment. You think, it's every day I carry that light.
Yeah. And it's Murphy's Law.
Yeah. And now I haven't got one. But yeah.
Yeah. So I carry, so I switched over completely to the SIG now. I still have Glock 43s. I still enjoy, kind of. I'm in the process of just phasing them all out. But what I like to shoot when I'm at the range is the staccato series, where, I've got a few of them. And if I'm selecting, the reason that I have lights on everything too is because it also gives me some front end weight for managed recoil. Yeah. So I'll use the staccato, I think it's the P, but I've got the comp on that with the flashlight. You shot that thing, and that's like probably the finest shooting pistol I've ever shot.
It's just so smooth, isn't it? Yeah. And it comes out. Yeah, what they've done with that gun is they've made it nice. It's nice to fire. That's what people who never fired a gun before, and we saw it on the range, and they grab it. And then they take hold of that, and then they fire it, and they think it's really nice. It's not like a brutal experience where it's not pleasant. And to some people, firing a handgun or any gun is again, it's in at the deep end. Yeah, it's just like this blast going off in your hand. You're in complete control of something that can kill someone, and it can intimidate people. But that staccato was just so nice and just flows out. And that's the same thing. Is we have to get you one. Is the Hypercom, it's the same thing. It's just like, but it's just like super smooth. And I think that's what's important to people, especially people who maybe don't want to own a gun, but feel like they because of the times that we're in, have to own a gun or should own a gun, right? Because they feel threatened, and that's the dangerous area of where people are buying guns who don't train with them, don't really want to own one. And then if they go to a range, and going to a range could be like going to a gym where there's a lot of intimidating personalities there who've always got lots of advice, some of it not good, some of it not safe. So it's, I think, having the right firearm and enjoying the experience is really important.
Yeah, and which is leading me into my next portion of this conversation, which is I've had this conversation with a lot of British guys in the past where the lack of access to firearms when you guys specifically are training, do you agree? Do you agree with that, or do you not agree with it? As far as you were serving in probably the highest capacity, but you had limited access.
Yeah,
do you agree with that?
I think the firearms and so within the military there should be more available.
Right.
And again, that's a lot of it is to do with cost, but more so with, like you say, no one likes change.
Right.
And I think British soldiers should be spending a lot more time on the range than they do. Because it's this, people don't think about things. When you say to a British soldier or any soldier, hey, you're training to kill someone, that doesn't really come up much. They go to the range to pass tests.
Right.
They go to the range to shoot targets.
Right.
They don't say you're going to a range to train to kill someone.
Right.
And I think that makes you think about it a bit more. I think, I need to be able to do this. And I do think that it doesn't matter what unit, but British soldiers, the British military, should spend more time on the range, because what happens is it's not about shooting someone and high-fiving each other and saying, good job. It's when they miss. It's when someone shoots someone, someone or something they're not supposed to shoot. That's when it all comes back. And then people say, well, maybe we should have spent more time on the range. Maybe we should have done things a bit differently. It's always the failures that make us address the problem. And I think, I just think within the military, they should spend more time on the range. But in regards to accessibility to firearms in UK, I think it's just a big an issue. And it's the same as giving access to making firearms more accessible to people in the UK. It's like taking away from them in the US.
Yeah.
It's the two countries are on different track lines, and it wouldn't be a workable solution. So it's just keep it as it is, but within the police and military, just increase the
access
then. Yeah.
I was wondering about this because spending some time on the range with both Australian and the British SAS guys, there's a noticeable difference most of the time as to the way that we shoot, and because we have access to guns anytime we want them for the most part in the States, and we shoot a lot. We shoot comps, we shoot 3-gun, we shoot all kinds of different competition. And I love my brothers from the Australian SAS guys. So if you're listening to this, please don't hold me accountable for it. But man, they were capable, but they definitely weren't at the same level.
Yeah.
And did you guys notice that from the British SAS perspective? Could you guys shoot instantly at the same level as like your counterparts from America? Or did you think that they were a bit ahead?
Again, I'm going into areas I don't want to talk about.
No, okay, that's good. Do you think that America's, I'll frame it up a different way. Do you think that American service members having more access to firearms makes them better shooters in general, as far as the international shooting capability of special operations?
Yes, yeah, and I think it's a natural thing. If you've been brought up doing something,
right,
you're going to be better at it. It goes without. It's fairly obvious.
Well, and which is a follow-on question, which is, do you think societies that limit firearms or access to firearms also start to deteriorate their warrior culture?
Yes. Yeah. And this is the thing you said there, warrior culture, because that if we use the term circle back, isn't that what everyone says nowadays?
Circle back, yeah.
We'll circle back to the start of this podcast about junior para.
Mm-hmm.
That was the warrior culture, and that was getting the mindset. And I think now that's what I'm always fearful of now, is how we joining the army isn't about young men wanting to jump out of airplanes and kill people. It's about young men getting a job.
Right.
And getting, we're going to go into this environment, you're going to get job opportunities and further your education, and then which leads to success later on in life. It's not this pure instinct of why do you want to join the army? Because I want to go to war.
Right.
Because I want to do the business. I want to kill the Queen's enemies.
Right.
It's the losing sight of that original picture, which in turn deteriorates the sort of mindset of combat soldiers, because they're just in it to get a job. They're just in it for a career rather than to an adventure.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we think, I think as the allied nations, we look at these things. I think we think about them very similarly because we spent a lot of time in the same place. Afghanistan, Iraq, across the Middle East and Southeast Asia, where defending the nation from terrorists or any country alike, that's a very honorable profession that we should be promoting from within our society. I think we should be emphasizing and investing in the warrior culture for quite literally the safety of our future.
Yeah.
I think it's a propaganda campaign that's ultimately manipulated by our enemies to put out anything otherwise.
Yeah.
Like if people think the Russians or the Chinese are our friends and they're always going to be our friends, they live in a fucking dream world.
Yeah.
So when I hear these things where we don't have to train men to kill, you're living in a fucking fantasy world.
Because they're doing it.
Yeah.
If it's important to our enemy, it's important to us.
Yes.
And that's what we should be looking at.
And we have to be better than they are.
Yeah.
So I look at these, and it typically comes from one section of our United States. It comes from a portion of our representatives. I heard something about it today where, people were defending the Chinese because of the Olympics. They're defending some of the actions. I'm like, are you guys on the payroll? I was just, the only thing I could think of is, are you guys on the Chinese payroll? Because you're defending a foreign country that has literally zero investment in our success. They're quite possibly actively, no, they are. They're actively pursuing control measures against us every day internationally. And you're a representative. You're an elected official on the payroll of the United States taxpayer, and you're defending somebody else. And I can't help but think this is a large scale information war. And at times I think that we're not waking up to, I guess, how manipulative and how significant our enemies are in controlling information. That's more of a statement than it is a question. But do you see parallels in information as far as like deterioration of the warrior class and more like derogatory information towards them? Do you see that in Britain the same as you see here?
I suppose I don't see it from the political establishment. Mm-hmm. I don't see it like we don't see that as much or at all as we do in the United States. But there is that. It is the whole media, it's just everything. And maybe they're being really clever about it. It's just, it seems to be coming in from every angle, whether it be social media, whether it be mainstream media, whether it be schooling, education. Young people are getting bombarded by it from every direction to become, dare I say it, better prey.
Yeah.
To be easier.
Right.
To be softer targets than whoever we may fight against. It's just chipping away at this block to make it softer and softer and softer. Does that make sense? I don't know.
No, it makes perfect sense. I think about it from the context of we should be constantly pursuing the elegance of being tough.
Yeah.
Because there's a way that you can be an example. You can be tough.
Yeah.
and you can lead, and you can be, you can dedicate your life to the art of war, and you don't have to be an asshole.
That's right. And it's this whole thing of people feel comfortable with whatever nation you're in, with their soldiers being able to defend themselves. But on the same people feel uncomfortable when they say, "Oh, the military are doing this in training. Oh, that's out of order. They shouldn't be doing that."
Yeah.
But they want their cake and they want the cake and eat it, sort of thing. They want to, they want everything. They want everything to be done within their sort of moral code, but also have an effective military fighting force. And the two don't marry up most of the time. So it should be a case of the military have to do their thing. And you know what? You don't need to know what's going on because they're doing their thing. Because strangely, if the military fail, then the civilian population are going to be up in arms saying, why did they fail? That's not acceptable. Well, they failed because you've restricted their budget, you've restricted their training capabilities because of health and safety and human rights or whatever you want to throw in there to just make things. But the other problem as well is maybe we've gone too far. Maybe the war's over because now the people, dare I say it, who might be in charge and calling the shots now have been molded and manipulated by the system.
Right.
So now even if you said to whatever army, do what you want in training, we don't care. You're allowed to, if someone dies, they die, that's fine. Then, but they'd be going, oh, we don't want to do that. That might upset X or Y or Z or whatever. So,
right.
So now it's like, how do we change it? Maybe we can't.
I hope that we can. I think, because
so just going way off track. Can you ever remember? Did you see Demolition Man?
Yeah, of course.
Have you seen it recently?
No.
Well, what people need to do, this is recommended viewing,
right,
is
go back and
watch it. And it's really sort of scary that whoever wrote it and did it, it's like, it's looking to the future.
Right.
There's this society, like if you say something bad, you get a warning or penalty. Everyone's got to dress the same. Everyone's got to talk the same. They go to the same place to eat. Everything, and then bad dude comes, Wesley Snipes. He's like terrorist from old, comes around and starts wrecking havoc, and that's it. So they have to defrost Sylvester Stallone.
That's right.
So they have to bring someone back from the past because he's the only person who's
that's
capable
right.
of
Yeah.
dealing. But here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Wesley Snipes, Simon Phoenix is the character.
Yeah.
He isn't the true enemy. The true enemy of the liberal leaders who bring Simon Phoenix back from defrost to then fight these inconvenient protesters who live underground. Isn't that weird?
It is weird.
It's it's so many levels. It's a great movie, and Wesley Snipes has been able to teach us so much. As an actor. Yeah. I mean, that look, again, it's been a while since I've seen it. I think he's got an orange t-shirt.
Do you have a photographic memory?
Dungarees.
Yeah, do you have a photographic memory?
I do for particular fashion. and that's like a good look. Maybe it's something I should bring back.
Because your recall on stuff is crazy. You've referenced things in the last couple of weeks where I'm like, how in the fuck do you remember that? So
I probably messed up all the facts and figures at the start of this podcast. So they might be a bit blurry, but I can remember what Simon Phoenix's dress code is. That's maybe why, maybe why. Yeah, there's lots of useless information in here, but the important stuff isn't around.
So what's next? What's next for you? What are you doing next?
Oh, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I had some plans and things, and COVID, like with many other people, sort of kicked it into touch. But so now I'm out. I retired in September 2020, and I've written a book called One Man In, which is, as we speak, with the Ministry of Defence, and hopefully it'll get cleared. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Right.
I want to, like, from the very get-go, I wanted to do this properly. And I said to my commanders, can I do this? And they said, yes, just work with disclosure. And that's what I'm doing. So if it never comes out, it never comes out.
Right.
But if it, hopefully, by the time this goes to air, it might have been cleared. So
Right.
from my mouth to God's ear, that's happened. But so there's that, and then maybe start working for this company called Black Rifle Coffee. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
You know a guy?
Andy Stump's the CEO. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so there's that. There's also doing some work with Zev. So
Yeah.
we're releasing the Zev Craighead this year,
Yeah.
which is a
awesome.
collector's piece, and then
Right.
and we'll go on to do more Zev product where we talk about like what would I carry and why, and how it looks, and through my experience, if, you know, what both pistol, outside the waistband, inside the waistband, and AR platforms.
Right.
You know what I'd carry, why, and then I'm getting into the hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
hunting piece, which is brilliant.
With the Field Ethos guys.
Yeah, they've looked after me really well, and met some great people. You know, I was honoured to go to the SCI show and the dinner there, and saw Longoria
Oh yeah.
win that Diana Award.
Yeah.
What a great lady. And she takes a lot of funny old things. She takes a lot of heat because she's a woman, because she's good looking.
And
so that's an easy target. She gets so much hate, but you know what? She just does her thing, and she highlights what hunting is really about. And to me, I really picked up on what she was saying, and I'm glad now she's a friend of mine. So.
Yeah, we had this really interesting interaction at SHOT Show because we were there with Field Ethos guys, Jason and Alan, and my buddy Baker, and everybody's there. And we went up to a suite at the Trump because we were all staying there. And so it was like my buddy Jason Everman, who's bassist for Nirvana and Soundgarden.
And I'm kicking myself. I told you that, didn't I? Yeah.
And he's wearing like a Carhartt jacket and like a ponytail. And then it's like Don Jr. and Alan and you and everybody.
Aviation like sweatshirt on a long sleeve t-shirt.
Yeah, that's right. And,
I'm staring across at Jason and going,
who is that?
Where do I know that guy from?
Yeah.
Where do I know that? I didn't say anything. I went, where do I? Because you don't want to go up to people and say, where do I know you from? Because most people in that room were somebody.
Yeah.
And you don't want to hassle them going, where do I think I know it? And it's only the next day when someone mentioned Soundgarden, I was like, I should have went up and said something. I now remember who he is. And so, yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, we've had a lot of fun. The cool thing is you're going to be here. So, we're going to be working together for the foreseeable future. Get you over to the States.
I'm looking forward to it. We're going to do some good stuff.
Yeah. So this is the first of many podcasts.
Yeah.
And I can't thank you enough. It's been great. And we can't wait for the next one.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on here, and let's look forward to doing some cool stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
That concludes today's training. Any questions?